Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, what if I told you that plants can talk? I know, it sounds a little out there, but today we're going to dig into the very real, hidden conversations happening in our gardens. We're uncovering the incredible science behind a super old practice. So let's just jump right in with the big question. Can plants actually warn each other when danger is lurking? It totally sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, stick with me, because the answer is a big, fat yes. And this idea, it's not actually new. For literally centuries, gardeners have known to pair certain plants together, almost like they have an instinct that these plants help each other out. So, what are we talking about here? Well, the official term is companion planting, and really all it means is you're planting different plants close to each other because they have this amazing ability to boost each other's growth or even protect each other from pests. It's like creating the perfect, helpful plant neighborhood. You know, a classic example of this, a really beautiful one, is the Three Sisters, a method used by Indigenous Americans for generations. You've got corn, beans, and squash all working together. The corn acts as a natural trellis for the beans to climb up. The beans, they're amazing. They pull nitrogen from the air and put it back into the soil, which is like a superfood for the corn. And then you have the squash, with its big leaves spreading out on the ground, keeping the soil moist and choking out weeds. It's this perfect, self-sustaining little ecosystem. Just brilliant. But here's the thing. Is this all just, old-timey gardening folklore, or is there some real hard science behind it? For the longest time, nobody really knew the how or the why it worked. It was just wisdom passed down. But now, science is finally starting to give us some answers. So, to figure out how plants might be talking, scientists decided to look at one of the most famous duos in the garden, the classic tomato and basil pairing. Here's what they did. They set up this really clever experiment. First, they grew some tomato plants all by themselves. Then, they grew other tomato plants right next to a basil plant. Step 3, they mimicked a bug attack by just slightly wounding a leaf on each of the tomatoes. And then, they just sat back and measured how the tomatoes responded. And wow, the results were crystal clear. Just look at this chart. The tomatoes that were grown all alone, they had a pretty low defensive response. But the ones with a basil neighbor, their defensive genes kicked into high gear, and they did it way faster and much stronger. The basil was definitely doing something. So, what's going on here? Scientists have a name for it, the priming effect. The best way to think about it is that the basil is basically giving the tomato a heads up. It's whispering, hey, get ready, something might be coming. So the tomato's defense system goes on high alert. It's not fully activated, which would waste energy. It's just primed, ready to spring into action way faster if a threat shows up. Okay, so how is basil sending this warning? This is the coolest part. It's happening through the air. You can't see it, but the basil plant is constantly releasing these tiny chemical signals called volatile compounds. It's like it has its own invisible, fragrant alarm system. And when the tomato eavesdrops on these airborne signals, it's not just a vague, be careful message. No, it kicks specific internal alarm systems into gear. We're talking about things like jasmonic acid signaling and MAPK signaling. I know, those are mouthfuls, but what you need to know is that these are the exact molecular pathways that plants use to fight back against bugs. And get this airborne chatter has very real consequences for any bug that gets hungry. Caterpillars that munched on the basil-primed tomato leaves, their weight was nearly 50% less than the caterpillars that ate the unprimed leaves. That's a huge difference. The defense system was absolutely working. Okay, but airborne warnings, that's just one tool in the gardener's bag of tricks. It gets even more interesting from here. Companion plants have developed a whole bunch of different strategies. I mean, it's incredible. Some of them release smells that pests just hate. Others act like decoys, what we call trap cropping, basically luring the bad guys away from the main crop. Then you have some that attract the good guys, the predator insects that eat the pests for you. And, of course, some improve the soil with nutrients or even act as a living trellis, providing physical support. All right, so how can you, the gardener, actually use all this amazing science? Let's get practical. Let's stick with our friend the tomato for a second. We already know about basil giving it that defensive heads up. But look at this. Plant marigolds next to them, and their roots actually produce a chemical that deters nasty little nematodes in the soil. Borage is another great one. It brings in pollinators and predatory insects that munch on tomato hornworms. And alliums, garlic, chives, Their strong smell can literally confuse pests, masking the scent of your delicious tomato. So, here's the bottom line. What was once just considered gardening folklore, maybe something your grandma told you to do, it's now being explained and proven by molecular biology. Science is finally catching up and showing us just how smart these old practices really are. And this isn't just about backyard gardens. Understanding these plant conversations, well, it could be a total game changer for the future of agriculture. Think about it. We could see a huge reduction in pesticide use, a move toward way more sustainable practices, more biodiversity in our fields, and healthier soil for everyone. This is big stuff. So really what all this shows us is that there's this incredibly complex, secret world of communication happening right under our noses, in our own backyards. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets are our gardens trying to tell us?